Picture this. You wake up, check your banking app, and bam, you've got exactly $100,000 sitting right there. The real question is, what do you actually do with it?
Well, if you're like most families, you'll probably do one of two things. You either leave it in a savings account, literally letting inflation eat it alive, or you panic, open a brokerage app, and start gambling on random stocks you saw on the internet.
Right, which usually ends in tears at the kitchen table. But what if we told you there's a third option, a way to take that 100K, completely skip the hours of staring at stressful stock charts, and, turn it into millions?
Safely. Today, we are putting that money on Autopilot. We're breaking down the 5 absolute best Fidelity Index Funds. And if you stick around, I'll even show you one specific fund that has the historical potential to turn that 100 grand into over $20 million.
20 million? Okay, I am so ready for this. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Frank. Welcome to Talk and Wonder. We create easy-to-understand whiteboard animations covering family finance, investing, passive income, and debt management. Our goal is to break down complex financial topics, help you avoid traps, and build wealth together. If you want to secure your future, you are exactly in the right place.
All right, Frank, let's build this portfolio. If a family is terrified of losing their hard-earned money in a market crash, where do we park it first?
We start with the absolute foundation. Number 5 on our list is the Fidelity MSCI Consumer Staples Index ETF, ticker symbol FSTA. This is basically your family's, your financial defensive wall.
Defensive? You mean companies that sell things people buy even when the economy is completely crashing?
Exactly. It's heavily weighted toward consumer defensive stocks. We're talking over 63% of this fund is dominated by companies you literally cannot live without. Procter & Gamble, Costco, Walmart, Coca-Cola.
So basically our entire weekend family shopping list?
Right. And that is the beauty of it. Look at the numbers. During the 2008 financial crisis, while the S&P 500 dropped by over 38%, consumer staples only fell by about 15%. It is a massive shock absorber for your money.
Okay, so it's a safe bet, but what about the growth? I mean, a 2.39% dividend yield isn't exactly going to make us rich overnight.
No, and this is the secret, look at the 10-year dividend CAGR, the compound annual growth rate. It is an impressive 10.7%. They've been consistently increasing their payouts for a decade.
Wow.
And if you put that $100,000 into FSTA, historically returning around 6.4% annually, in 30 years, that initial investment balloons to over $2.3 million.
Wait, just from holding toothpaste and toilet paper companies?
Yep. And by year 30, it could be throwing off over $13,000 a month in dividends alone. That's a fully funded, stress-free retirement just sitting right there.
Okay, so FSTA is basically our family's financial bunker. I love that. But we don't just want to survive, right? What happens when the economy is actually doing well? Like, when a family gets a nice year-end bonus and suddenly everyone in the neighborhood is redoing their kitchen or booking a vacation.
Exactly. You shift from defense to offense. And that brings us to number 4 on the list, the Fidelity MSCI Consumer Discretionary Index ETF, ticker symbol FDIS.
Discretionary. So that's basically the fun money sector?
Precisely. It's all about growth and innovation. Unlike the boring essentials, FDIS invests in companies that thrive when people actually have disposable income. We are talking heavily weighted towards industry giants like Amazon, Tesla, and Home Depot.
Oh, wow. So literally all the places where my paycheck disappears to.
Yeah, those 3 alone make up almost 39% of this fund, because when the economy is strong, this sector can experience explosive growth. Just look at the 2010 to 2020 boom. The consumer discretionary sector returned an average of 16% per year, which, by the way, completely crushed the S&P 500's 13%.
Okay, 16% is huge, but wait, let me guess. Because it's a growth fund, the dividends are probably terrible.
Well, the initial dividend yield is low. It's just around 0.76%. But, and you can't ignore this, it compensates with massive capital growth. Plus, it still has a 10-year dividend CAGR of over 11%, so the payouts are steadily climbing.
So it's less about getting a fat check next month and more about the long game. What does that actually look like for our $100,000?
Look, if you plug that $100,000 into FDIS and let it ride the economic waves, in 10 years it could swell to about $315,000.
Nice.
If you hold it for 20 years, it nearly touches $1 million. And after 30 years, it could explode to over $3.1 million.
Over $3 million? Just by investing in people buying Prime packages and remodeling their bathrooms?
Yep, and by that 30-year mark, even that tiny dividend yield we joked about, it would be generating nearly $20,000 in annual passive income. It is literally a powerful engine for long-term, wealth accumulation, perfect for capitalizing on economic booms.
Okay, so we've covered the defensive basics and the fun discretionary spending. But Frank, let's talk about the elephant in the room for practically every family in North America.
The bills you absolutely cannot escape.
Exactly. The medical bills, the prescriptions, the random trips to the urgent care when the kids get sick. And then, our own parents aging. It feels like a black hole for family savings.
It is. But here is the CFO perspective. If you know that you, your family, and the rest of the world are going to be handing over massive amounts of money to these healthcare giants, why not make sure you own a piece of them?
Oh, so basically turning our biggest expense into a wealth builder?
That is precisely the strategy behind number 3, the Fidelity MSCI Healthcare Index ETF, ticker symbol FHLC. This fund covers a sector that, sadly, never goes out of style. Consistent demand completely regardless of economic cycles.
So it's like a hybrid. It's defensive, like the consumer staples we talked about first, but with more growth?
Bingo. Just look at the 2008 crash. While the S&P 500 plummeted 38%, healthcare only declined by about 22%. It's incredibly resilient. And FHLC is dominated by absolute heavyweights: Eli Lilly, United Health Group, Johnson & Johnson.
Wait, so the exact companies making the medicine in our cabinets and handling our insurance claims?
Exactly. Over 25% of the fund is just those top 3. Now, the starting dividend yield is a modest 1.26%, but Lynn, this is where the magic happens. Look at its 10-year dividend CAGR.
Okay, hit me. How fast are they raising the payouts?
Pausing for effect, emphasizing. A massive 16.18%.
Wait, what? They've been growing their dividend by 16% a year?
For a decade. The dividend payouts are literally snowballing. This is crucial for investors who want income later in life to, actually cover those medical costs.
Okay, let's run the numbers on our $100,000 scenario. If a family parked their money here instead.
Analytical, steady. Historically, it averages around a 9.2% annual return. In 10 years, that $100K grows to roughly $283,000.
Solid.
Hold it for 20 years, you are pushing near $1 million, about $931,000. But if you let that compounding engine run for 30 years, it rockets past $4 million.
$4 million just from healthcare?
$4 million. And here is the craziest part. By year 30, it could be spitting out over $25,000 a month in dividends alone.
25 grand a month? Honestly, that would probably cover even the most ridiculous medical bills we'd ever see in retirement.
Exactly. It is the ultimate hedge against life's biggest expenses.
Okay, so we've got the essentials, the fun stuff, and the healthcare covered. But Frank, I look around the house and you know what I actually see our kids and, to be honest, us spending most of our time and money on?
Let me guess. Screens, subscriptions, and whatever new gadget Apple just released?
Yes, exactly. It's like literally our entire lives are run by tech now. The kids are obsessed with those high-end gaming graphics cards. We're streaming movies, working on cloud software. It's everywhere.
And that is exactly why you cannot ignore this next sector if you want your family's wealth to actually, survive the future. That brings us to number 2 on our list, the Fidelity NASDAQ Composite Index ETF, ticker symbol ONEQ.
The NASDAQ? So this is a bet on tech?
It's a bet on the future. ONEQ tracks the NASDAQ Composite Index. You're getting instant exposure to some of the world's most innovative, market-disrupting companies. It's heavily weighted towards tech giants, Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA. They make up nearly 40% of the fund.
So we're basically owning a piece of the companies that build, well, everything we use every single day.
Exactly. Technology accounts for over half of this fund's assets, but it also has significant allocations to communication services and consumer cyclical sectors. It's not just tech, it's the infrastructure of the modern economy.
Okay, but tech can be volatile, right? I mean, we remember the dot-com bubble. Is this safe for a family's core $100,000?
That's a great question. It's definitely more aggressive than the consumer staples we started with. But look at the historical performance. From 2010 to 2020, the NASDAQ returned an average of 17.5% per year. It consistently outperforms the S&P 500 during periods of technological advancement.
Wow, 17.5% is massive. But I'm guessing the dividends aren't exactly paying the mortgage?
Right. The starting yield is tiny, just 0.64%, but they've been steadily increasing payouts with a 10-year dividend CAGR of over 7%, so it's growing. But the real story here is the massive capital appreciation.
Okay, CFO, run the numbers. What happens to our $100,000 if we just let it ride the tech wave?
Based on an impressive average annual return of over 14.4%, after 10 years, that initial investment might be worth around $401,000.
Okay, quadrupled in a decade.
If you hold on for 20 years, the value could rise to about $1.5 million. And after 30 years...
Wait, is it...
Pay attention, a staggering $6.1 million.
$6.1 million? Just from letting the money sit in a NASDAQ fund?
Yep, over $6 million added to your portfolio just from capital appreciation. And even with that tiny starting dividend, by year 30, it would be generating around $4,000 a month in passive income.
Okay, so basically, every time I yell at the kids to get off their screens, I should just remember they're technically funding our retirement?
Well, when you put it that way, yes, exactly.
Okay, $6 million from the NASDAQ is, frankly, it's life-changing. But Frank, at the very beginning of this episode, you made a promise. You said there was one fund that could potentially turn a $100,000 investment into over $20 million?
I did. And look, I want to be extremely clear here. We are not talking about getting rich quick. We are talking about decades of compounding. We are talking about building true generational wealth.
Generational wealth, like money that outlives us.
Exactly. For our kids and their kids. And the vehicle for that kind of explosive, unstoppable growth is number 1 on our list. The Fidelity MSCI Information Technology Index ETF, ticker symbol FETC.
Wait, information technology, isn't that just tech again, like the NASDAQ we just talked about?
It's tech on steroids, Lynn. The NASDAQ has tech, but it also has consumer stuff. FTEC is a pure, concentrated bet. Nearly 100% of its assets are invested directly into the companies building the actual future: software, semiconductors, cloud computing, and, of course, AI.
So it's basically owning the engine room of the entire global economy.
Precisely. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia alone make up almost 50% of this entire fund. And because these companies are growing so fast, FTEC has delivered an average annual return of 18.67%.
18% consistently?
Yes. And the dividend? It starts at a tiny 0.66%. But the companies inside this fund are growing their payouts so fast, the 10-year dividend CAGR is an unbelievable 19%.
Okay, I'm ready. Run the 30-year simulation on our $100,000.
All right. 1 year in, it's at about $119,000. Not bad. 10 years in, you're sitting on roughly $586,000.
Whispering. $500,000.
20 years, you cross the $3.4 million mark. But if you have the discipline to leave that money alone for 30 years, to let that 18% compound,
Breathless, anticipating. Tell me.
that $100,000 skyrockets to an estimated $20.2 million.
Exhaling sharply. Stunned silence for a microsecond. 20 million from 100 grand. That's not just a retirement. That's a legacy.
Calmly, proudly, by year 30, it would be paying you over $10,500 every single month just in dividends, over $126,000 a year of purely passive income, while you sit on a $20 million nest egg.
Okay, I think I need to go look at our family budget right now, because even if we don't have 100 grand sitting around right this second, I want to start building that snowball.
And that's the whole point of this channel. Whether you have 100,000 or you're starting with just 10,000, the math still works. The strategy is exactly the same.
Speaking of which, if you want to achieve a comfortable monthly retirement income, but you don't quite have $100,000 yet, don't worry.
Click the video on your screen right now. We'll show you how to use REITs to start getting these exact same snowball results with just a $10,000 investment.
We'll see you in that video. Keep building that wealth.